Okay, so how many of you, be honest, how many of you have ever like patted your pockets in a panic? You're like, oh no, where's my phone?
Yeah.
You get that sinking feeling.
Uh-huh.
It's like losing an extra limb, right?
It is, yeah. It's like, where is it?
Exactly.
It controls our lives.
It does. And what if I told you the real danger goes way beyond just missing those late night scroll sessions or, not being able to post that amazing picture of your lunch? We're diving deep today into the world of phone theft. And trust me, the stories we've got are enough to make anyone double-check their phone's whereabouts. We're talking about financial devastation, the kind that leaves you reeling. So imagine this. A top cop, Lieutenant Colonel Ashish Kumar Dwivedi, has his phone stolen, reports it immediately, and still loses almost 80,000 rupees in just 24 hours.
It's frightening
It is.
how quickly things can spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And it's not just high-ranking officials who are targeted.
Right.
We also came across the story of Arabindra Kumar, who lost a staggering 3.6 lakh rupees in a mere 48 hours. Sadly, despite filing a cybercrime report, he never recovered his phone or the money.
So these stories really hit home, don't they? It makes you wonder, if it happened to you, would you know what to do? That's exactly what we're here to explore today. We're going to equip you with the knowledge you need to prevent phone theft. And if the worst happens, how to react swiftly and minimize the damage. But before we get into all that, let's zoom out and grasp the sheer scale of this problem. The numbers are pretty eye-opening.
They really are. In India alone, over 28 lakh phones were blocked after being reported stolen.
Wow.
And although a significant number were traced, that still leaves a huge number of people vulnerable.
It's mind-boggling. The Delhi Metro Police alone recovered a whopping 450 stolen phones in just 20 days. We're talking over 1 crore rupees worth of devices. It just shows you how widespread this issue truly is.
Absolutely. It's a wake-up call that anyone can be a target.
Yeah.
Which is why it's crucial to know what to do if you find yourself in this situation.
Okay, so let's say the unthinkable happens and your phone disappears. What's the very first step you should take?
The moment you realize your phone is gone, file a police report immediately.
Immediately.
Don't wait.
Don't even wait.
And it's not just about trying to recover your phone, though that's certainly a hope. This report creates a crucial paper trail that can be invaluable if there's any fraudulent activity linked to your phone.
So you're saying a police report is essential even if you think you just misplaced your phone?
Precisely. It's always better to err on the side of caution. Now, after filing that report, there's another crucial step you need to take.
Ah, yes. You mentioned a website earlier, something about blocking your phone remotely.
Yes, the CEIR portal, available at https://www.ceir.gov.in. This portal lets you block your device using its unique IMEI number. Essentially, you're making the phone useless to the thief.
So blocking the phone through this website basically makes it a useless brick.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's actually pretty powerful.
It is.
But what about all those apps we have linked to our bank accounts and finances?
That brings us to the next critical step: delinking your phone from any financial services.
Okay.
Remove it from UPI, which is India's popular mobile payment system, as well as any other payment apps you use.
Got it.
And it's crucial to notify your bank immediately.
So basically, you're cutting off all potential access points before the thief can even think about using them. This all sounds a bit overwhelming, though.
It's a lot to process, I understand, but taking these steps can potentially save you a lot of heartache down the line. And while you're at it, change all your passwords, email, social media, anything with stored payment information.
It's a digital lockdown.
Is
Is there anything else people can do to protect their data?
Absolutely. If you were proactive and set up a remote wipe feature on your phone, you can use it to erase all your data. It's like an insurance policy for your digital life. You hope you never need it, but you're incredibly grateful when you do.
Right. We often forget to set these things up before something bad happens. Speaking of being prepared, let's talk about the differences between iPhone and Android security. I've always heard that iPhones are generally considered more secure. Is there any truth to that?
You know, one of the things that makes iPhones harder to steal is that the SIM card is directly linked to your Apple ID.
Yeah. Okay.
So this means a thief can't simply pop in a new SIM and start using it,
Ah, got it.
which makes it much less attractive to steal and harder to resell.
So it's not just about the software then. It's about how the hardware and software work together.
Exactly.
But what about Android users? What can they do to up their security game?
Android phones, unfortunately, don't have built-in SIM locking, which means Android users need to be extra vigilant about their phone security.
That's a great point. And this actually leads perfectly into our next section, which is all about taking proactive steps to make our phones less appealing targets.
Yeah.
What are some of the things people can do right now to boost their phone security?
Before we jump into that, I want to emphasize something crucial. Never, ever share your PINs or banking credentials with anyone, even if you trust them completely.
Not even your best friend, your mom, or your dog.
Absolutely not. It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how often people fall victim to scams because they trusted the wrong person.
Okay, so pinions and passwords are locked down. But what about all those apps we use every day? Is there anything we can do to protect those?
There are definitely steps you can take. One simple and effective measure is to use app blockers.
App blockers, okay.
These keep sensitive apps secure even if your phone is unlocked. Think banking apps, personal notes, anything you wouldn't want someone else to see.
That's a fantastic idea. And I know a lot of people use WhatsApp for work or sensitive discussions. Are there any specific security features they should be aware of?
WhatsApp has a great feature that allows you to lock individual chats with a fingerprint or PIN. This adds an extra layer of privacy, which is especially important if you're discussing confidential matters.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've got app blockers, chat locks, strong password, anything else we should be thinking about?
Social media is often overlooked, but it's incredibly important. It's amazing how much information we share online without even thinking about it.
Right.
Keeping your profiles private is a great first step, limiting the amount of information scammers can access.
It's all about minimizing your digital footprint, making it harder for anyone with bad intentions to build a profile on you. So we've covered a lot of ground on personal security, but I think it's important to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here.
I agree. Phone theft isn't just a personal problem. It has significant implications for the entire BFSI sector. Banking, financial services, and insurance.
So how does a stolen phone impact these institutions? It seems like a leap from a personal annoyance to a threat to the financial system.
It all boils down to the data. A stolen phone can provide access to login credentials, personal information, even financial transaction history.
Right.
This information can then be used for identity theft, fraudulent transactions, all sorts of cybercrime.
It's like handing over a key to your entire financial life. So what are banks doing to combat this growing threat?
Banks are getting much more sophisticated in their security measures. They're using AI-powered fraud detection systems to identify suspicious activity.
So, for example, if there's a sudden burst of transactions from a new location, the system flags it as potentially fraudulent.
Exactly, yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What about multi-factor authentication? I've heard that's becoming increasingly common.
Absolutely. Multi-factor authentication adds those extra layers of security beyond just a password. So even if someone gets hold of your password, they still need that second factor, like a one-time code sent to your email or phone to access your account. It's a simple but effective way to enhance security.
And what about blockchain? I keep hearing about that in the context of security. How is it being used to protect our information?
Blockchain is a fascinating development in this space. It's being used to create secure digital identities, making it much harder for criminals to steal and misuse personal information. It's like having a digital vault for your identity.
So even if your phone is stolen, these measures make it much harder for thieves to actually access your accounts and cause real damage. That's reassuring. You know, before we wrap up this section on the financial impact, I want to lighten things up a bit.
You want to inject some humor into the conversation about phone theft?
Well, sometimes a little levity helps, right?
Yeah.
I actually came across some pretty funny jokes in our research. Like, losing your phone is like losing your mind, except you can't call it to find out where it went.
Huh. That's a good one. It does feel that way sometimes, doesn't it?
Right, like you're completely lost without it.
You are.
And this one really made me laugh. Thieves these days are so tech-savvy, they probably have a LinkedIn profile. Professional phone snatcher and part-time fraudster.
Okay, I have to admit that one's pretty funny. It really highlights how much our world revolves around technology.
Right, both for good and for bad.
For good and bad.
It's a strange paradox for sure. Well, on that note, I think it's time to shift gears a bit. We've covered a lot of ground on the immediate aftermath of phone theft and the broader impact it has on the financial industry. But what can our listeners do to be more proactive? What steps can they take today to make themselves less vulnerable?
That's a great question, and one we'll dive into right after a quick break.
All right, so we've talked about that immediate panic of losing your phone and the wider ripple effects it can have. But let's flip the script and talk about what our listeners can do before disaster strikes. What are some simple, practical steps we can take to make ourselves less appealing targets.
Well, think of it like this. We lock our cars and homes to deter thieves, right?
Right.
The same principle applies to our phones.
Okay.
It's all about creating layers of protection.
So it's not about making our phones impenetrable, but rather making them less attractive to thieves.
Exactly. And a lot of it comes down to using the security features that are already available to us. We talked about app lockers earlier. Those are fantastic for keeping sensitive apps secure, even if your phone is unlocked.
Right. So even if someone grabs your phone for a quick peek, they won't be able to access your banking app or
Yes.
personal notes.
Precisely. And don't forget about chat locks for apps like WhatsApp. If you're discussing confidential matters, having that extra layer of security can make a world of difference.
And let's not forget about remote wipe. Setting that up beforehand could be a lifesaver if your phone goes missing.
Absolutely. It's like hitting the emergency eject button on your data.
Okay, so we've got apps locked down, remote wipe, ready to go. What about all the information we share online? How can we be more mindful of our digital footprint?
Social media is a big one. It's amazing how much we reveal about ourselves without even realizing it.
It really is.
Our locations, our habits, our connections, it's all out there.
And that kind of information is a goldmine for scammers.
Ah, absolutely. So, one of the simplest yet most effective things you can do is review your privacy settings. Make sure your profiles are set to private. And be mindful of what you're sharing publicly.
It's like putting up a virtual fence around your digital life. And speaking of boundaries, we talked earlier about the importance of protecting our PINs and passwords. But how do you say no to someone you trust who asks for them? It can feel awkward.
It's definitely a delicate situation. But you have to remember that your financial security is at stake. A good way to approach it is to explain that you have a strict policy of never sharing those details with anyone, even family or close friends.
So it's not about singling them out, but rather about having a personal rule that you stick to.
Exactly. And you can always offer alternative ways to help them if they need it without compromising your security.
Now, we've talked a lot about personal responsibility, but it feels like there's a bigger conversation here about the role of technology companies and institutions in protecting our data.
You're absolutely right. It's a shared responsibility. We as individuals need to be proactive about our security, but tech companies and financial institutions also have a crucial role to play.
So what kind of steps should we be pushing for at a systemic level?
Well, for starters, we need stronger security measures built into devices and platforms.
Right.
Things like biometric authentication, encryption, and robust fraud detection systems. These should be the norm, not the exception.
And what about regulations? Do we need stronger laws to hold companies accountable for data breaches and cybercrime?
Absolutely. Data breaches are becoming increasingly common, and the consequences can be devastating. We need stricter regulations that require companies to implement strong security measures and to be transparent about how they collect, store, and use our data.
It feels like a constant battle, though. As soon as we catch up with the latest security measures, the scammers find new ways to exploit vulnerabilities. It's overwhelming.
It can definitely feel that way, but that's why it's so important to stay informed, to stay curious, and to keep asking questions.
You know, it's interesting. We started this deep dive with stories about phone theft, but it's really evolved into a much broader conversation about digital security and the challenges we face in an increasingly connected world.
It's all interconnected, isn't it? Phone theft is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. But the good news is that we have the power to protect ourselves, both individually and collectively.
Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
And the more we know, the better equipped we are to navigate these challenges.
Exactly. So what have you found most useful or surprising in our conversation today?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the realization that phone theft isn't just about losing a device. It's about losing a piece of our digital lives, our identity, our financial security.
I think that's a really important point. It's easy to dismiss it as just an inconvenience, but the potential consequences are far-reaching. And for me, the most striking takeaway is the sheer scale of the problem.
Right.
The number of stolen phones, the amount of money lost, it's staggering.
And it highlights the fact that we can't afford to be complacent. We need to be proactive, informed, and vigilant. But before we get too serious, I want to loop back to something you said earlier about staying curious. It's so easy to get overwhelmed by all this talk of security and threats that we forget to approach it with a sense of wonder and exploration.
You're right. It shouldn't feel like a chore. Technology, at its core, is about innovation and possibility. And while it's important to be aware of the risks, it's equally important to embrace the positive aspects of our digital world.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of empowerment. We've talked about the risks, the preventative measures, the industry responses, but ultimately it's up to each of us to take control of our digital lives.
We're not helpless bystanders. We have agency, we have knowledge, and we have the power to make a difference.
So to all our listeners out there, what's one small step you can take today to enhance your digital security? It could be setting up an app blocker, reviewing your privacy settings, or even just having a conversation with a friend or family member about online safety. Every little action counts.
And remember, staying informed is an ongoing journey. The digital landscape is constantly evolving, so it's important to stay curious, keep learning, and adapt as needed.
Well said. We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights and practical tips to navigate the complex world of phone theft and digital security. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe and stay mighty. We've covered so much ground today, from those stories, those really tough stories of people losing their phones. And we're not just talking about losing phone, we're talking about losing tons of money, but then also what we can do to protect ourselves.
It has been quite a journey, yeah. I think the key takeaway for me is just knowing knowledge is power, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I think in this digital age, it's more important than ever.
It can feel overwhelming, right?
Absolutely.
All the threats, everything out there. But I think the more we understand how all of this works, the better equipped we are to actually make those informed decisions.
Yeah, and you said something earlier that really resonated with me. It's not just about being reactive, right?
Right.
It's about being proactive, like taking those steps to secure your devices, your data, before anything bad happens.
Exactly. It's like building a digital fortress around ourselves. Strong passwords, app lockers, remote wipe, all this stuff. It's like this, it's essential, right?
Yeah.
We need to have these tools in our arsenal.
You do. And let's not forget about staying informed, right?
Right.
The digital landscape changes every single day. So we need to stay on top of it. We need to know what the new threats are, the new security measures.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, right? Like a constant learning. And to your point, we have to stay curious and we have to ask those questions and stay engaged, or else we're going to fall behind.
Absolutely. And we can't do this alone, right? We have to rely on each other, share information, kind of come together as a community to support each other in this digital journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a collective effort for sure. And it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's about protecting our loved ones too, right?
Yeah.
Especially people who might be a little more vulnerable to scams, cyber attacks, maybe people who aren't as familiar with all this.
That's such an important point, and I think sometimes we forget that. We need to have these conversations with our friends, with our family, educate them about the risks and empower them to take control of their digital security as well.
It's interesting how our perception of phone theft has kind of shifted, like throughout this whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's not just about losing a device anymore.
No.
It's about losing a part of ourselves, our digital identity, our connections, memories, photos, everything.
Everything, yeah. It's become so much a part of our lives. It's hard to separate the two, right? Yeah. The phone and who we are.
Yeah, and the impact, it goes so far beyond just the financial side of it. It's emotional, it's personal, it feels like a violation. You feel exposed.
You do, absolutely.
So, yeah, we have to take this seriously, right?
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that this could happen.
Yeah.
This could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And just really arm ourselves with the information, the tools, and the knowledge to protect ourselves.
We've come a long way, right? From those clunky cell phones we used to have to now, these little like mini computers we carry around with us every day.
Yeah.
And I think with that power comes responsibility.
Big responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be mindful of the risks, for sure.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we have to also embrace all the incredible things that technology has given us.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act. It really is. But I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be trying to strive for that balance, right? So as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope that everyone listening feels a sense of hope and a sense of empowerment, because we've gone into the dark side, but I think there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way to be more secure, and have a better digital future.
I agree. And it starts with each of us, making these conscious choices about how we use our technology and how we protect it.
So go forth, everyone. Be vigilant, be curious, and be empowered. You got this. Navigate this digital world with confidence and with peace of mind.
And remember, we're all in this together. Support one another, learn from one another, and let's create a digital space that is safe and secure for everybody.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative, engaging, and maybe even a little inspiring. So until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay mighty.